Hello and welcome. I'm Millicent Walker. Tonight, tension in Ijaye area of Lagos as mob kills 2 persons suspected to be kidnappers. Police battle to control angry crowd. Police tear gas group demanding return of President Buhari to Nigeria in Abuja say miscreants have hijacked the protest. Federal government files for discontinuance of case against 7 banks over TSA, seeks out-of-court settlement. And South African President Jacob Zuma survives another no-confidence vote in Parliament. On Business News tonight, the federal government is optimistic that its Credit Reform Act will improve Nigeria's ease of doing business ranking in 2018.
On Sports News tonight, Spanish giants Real Madrid defeat Manchester United to win the 2017 UEFA Super Cup.
And from Abuja, People's Democratic Party moves to reconcile aggrieved members across the country, vows to punish those who resist peace initiative.
We begin tonight with a report on how 2 suspected kidnappers were today lynched by a mob in the Ijaye area of Lagos, despite efforts by the police to stop the action. The angry crowd was said to have pounced on the suspects and set them on fire as they ran out of the storm channel, believed to be a den for kidnappers. Channels TV gathered that the mob had laid siege to the area early this morning after a highway sweeper with the Lagos State Waste Management Agency raised an alarm on hearing the voice of a woman allegedly kidnapped by the suspects. Meanwhile, the police have arrested more suspects, and one of them is said to have confessed to be a member of a 28-man gang who are still hiding in the storm channel. The State Police Commissioner says his men will continue to comb the area until other members of the gang are arrested.
All this started at about 9 o'clock when information came out to say that someone was heard, that a female voice was heard shouting help, help under the canal here by some of the street sweepers. And in the process, the people around moved in there to help, and the divisional police officer around this area was contacted, who immediately got to the place. So while they were trying to assist the person that shouted help, help, they also noticed that some fellows also attempted to run out of the canal with an object in their mouth that looked fetish, a gout, something like that. And that made the crowd to suspect something unusual. And immediately thereafter, they pounced on those 2 fellows that seemed to be pursuing the woman that was shouting help, help. And unfortunately, in a mob action like this, after the crowd had surged forward, those 2 fellows, they've started jungle justice on them. So we had to reinforce. And in the process, people had pointed to some buildings as being suspected to be harboring some people that are believed to be engaged in some either ritual killings or kidnapping. The police took the lead to that place.
Elsewhere, military authorities are yet to confirm if indeed 31 fishermen were killed by suspected Boko Haram terrorists today at the Baga area of Benue State. A member of the Civilian Joint Task Force, who prefers to be anonymous, had reported that 14 of the 31 victims were killed at Duguri and 17 others from Daba Wanzam. The source revealed that the attack came less than 4 weeks after residents of the fishing communities returned from refugee camps. The state governor, Kashim Shettima, shortly after the story of the attack broke, said investigations are still ongoing on the reported attack. Channels TV correspondent in Borno State, Blessing Tuna, gives an update on the attack, but we'll come to that story shortly. Authorities at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport have refuted a rumored bomb scare at the Hajj and cargo terminal of the airport today. They say an unattended bag was spotted at the terminal after the departure of the fourth flight for intending pilgrims. The Chief Security Officer of the Federal Airports Authority Hajj and Cargo Terminal, as well as the police bomb disposal units, were contacted and began the process of finding out the owner and the contents of the bag. When no one claimed ownership of the bag, the bomb disposal unit blew up the bag using an explosive device. Passengers are asked to be cautious of their belongings and ensure that all properties are securely kept. And the protest by members of the Concerned Nigerians group against the absence of the president took an unpleasant turn on the second day of the march. One of the protesters has sustained injuries after police tried to disperse them with tear gas. While the coalition members gathered for day 2 of their sit-out at the Millennium Park in Abuja, demanding the disclosure of President Muhammadu Buhari's health status.
It's the second day of the protest by the campaign group Concerned Nigerians, led by popular musician Charles Oputa, also known as Charlie Boy. This time around, there are just a handful of the protesters demonstrating peacefully under the watchful eyes of the police, who outnumbered them. What happens next is an unprovoked attack by the police. Journalists are also prevented from filming during the encounter. Undeterred, the protesters regrouped to state their position, but Charlie Boy slumps to the ground. A few hours later, Channel Television caught up with Charlie Boy to narrate his experience.
They started to shoot the tear gas, and they shot in our direction. You know, usually you want to shoot the tear gas, you shoot it by the side, not towards the people's direction. They started to do that. Meanwhile, there was a Silverbird journalist, and I think from your channel's journalist who was there too. They got really ruffled up. And then all of a sudden a policeman comes in my direction, in my face, to put the butt of his gun here. Because we're only 10 people there. I mean, what could 10 people do? And we were sitting on the ground. We did not come there with any weapon. What could 10 people do as against about 150 policemen? But this is the kind of impunity, this is the kind of recklessness that happens in the country. And everybody keeps quiet.
In a follow-up interview, the police gave their side of the story.
Yesterday, the same group of persons were there, and we gave them all the required cover. We were there on ground to protect them, to ensure that everything went as expected. And today's phone, the variances, the infiltration of the miscreants who came in, and the whole thing was done that they became unruly, therefore distracting other peace-loving citizens access to the roads. So we have to come in to ensure that there's no breakdown of law and order.
President Buhari left the nation's capital over 90 days ago. These protesters insist they will continue the sit-out session until the president either resumes or resigns.
The federal government is asking a federal high court in Lagos to strike out a suit requesting the remittance of the sum of $793 million allegedly hidden in 7 commercial banks. Counsel to the federal government told Justice Chuka Obiozo that the government is making the move in the public interest as it has decided to explore an out-of-court settlement with the banks. Lawyers to the banks did not object to the notice of discontinuance, but they want the court to dismiss the application properly and award costs against the federal government. Our correspondent Shola Shiele has more.
The federal government had alleged that the 7 banks connived with some government agencies to illegally hide in their coffers the money which was meant to have been transmitted to the Treasury single account domiciled in the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN. On July 20th, Justice Chuka Obiozo of the Federal High Court in Lagos granted an interim order in favor of the federal government directing the banks to temporarily remit the funds to the TSA. The judge had then adjourned till Tuesday, August 8, for the banks to appear before him to show cause why the interim order should not be made permanent. Following the order, most of the affected banks issued retractions and disclaimers, insisting they had no illegal funds in their custody. The proceedings on Tuesday did not provide evidence of these illegal funds. Instead, counsel to the federal government, Professor Yemi Akinseye George, told the court that he had been instructed by the Attorney General of the Federation to discontinue the case in the overall interest of the public. He stressed that this was not because the suit lacked substance or was baseless, but being corporate citizens, the federal government was interested in the well-being of the banks, especially because of the economic implications.
The case was filed in the public interest, and it was discontinued in the larger or overriding public interest. I think what the AG has done is good in the interest of all of us.
But the banks, through their lawyers, have insisted that the government's allegation against them was false and had caused substantial damage to their reputation. They instead urged the judge not to merely strike out the suit, but to dismiss it and award cost of between 10 to 20 million naira against the federal government. They also argued that any case struck out could be refiled, while a case dismissed could no longer be refiled.
It's good that the action was discontinued, but what about the collateral damage? Don't forget that they obtained interim orders. They made publications in the newspaper that were not in my client's interest, in the bank's interest. Some damage was done.
After listening to the submissions of the parties, Justice Obiozo adjourned till Wednesday, August 9, to rule on whether the case would be struck out or dismissed. Shola Shoyeli, Channels Television News.
Away from the courts, the Mietiala Cattle Breeders Association is challenging the newly enacted Benue State anti-grazing law in court. The association is accusing the state government of contradicting the freedom of movement as contained in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But the governor, Samuel Ortom, believes the suit is a move to frustrate his efforts at ensuring peace returns to the state. The cattle breeders had threatened legal action days after Governor Ortom assented to the open grazing prohibition and ranchers establishment bill.
Let the court prove to me that it was wrong for me to initiate and send a bill instead of mobilizing people to begin to kill and do. I don't believe in lawlessness. I believe that we should do things in an orderly manner. So that one is before the court. The court will determine what is the way forward. But everyone should know that we were exercising our constitutional responsibility. And it is meant to protect lives and property. And that includes herdsmen and their cattle. That is what the bee is meant for. And it is not just meant to deal with herdsmen and their cattle. We are talking of livestock generally. So for us in this part of Nigeria, we produce pigs. So pigs too must be ranched. Goats must be ranched. Sheep must be ranched. This is what we are saying, because the land is no longer there. If you leave your cattle to go out today, they will trespass on somebody's farm. And this will create problems.
Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom. One of the 3 officers dismissed from service for burgling the house of the former president, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, has been arraigned by the FCT Police Command. The 23-year-old dismissed Police Sergeant Musa Musa alongside 3 others allegedly stole various items from the house valued at 30 million naira. Musa, who was arraigned before a Chief Magistrate Court in Wuse, Abuja, pleaded not guilty and was granted bail in the sum of 7 million naira with a surety in like sum. The Chief Magistrate held that there was nothing placed before the court by the prosecution to warrant a bail denial. In part 2, after the break, the People's Democratic Party sets up committee to reconcile its members across the country. Please stay with us.